Now, there's one thing we want to check right off the bat. You're going to need a straight edge, something that you know is nice and flat, and some feeler gauges. I've already checked all this, mind you, so we're just going to go on an overview. But you're going to take your straight edge here, and you're going to do this on both sides. But you want to make sure these are dead flat. If you do not have these dead flat here, they need machined. This side, note, if you machine this side, this pocket will need machined out too. This side, if you machine it, as long as everything is flat, there's no additional steps needed. Once you verify these are flat, we're going to look at one thing. And before I get too far, I do want to mention, do not remove the stator. If you remove this stator, you are going to need special alignment tools and everything else to put this back in. And there should be no reason, unless this is damaged, to remove it. And honestly, if your stator's damaged, just get a reman pump. We're going to move on. This pump has a 13 vein kit. Now, GM over the years, depending on what you're working on, the early 700 R4s have a 7 vein pump that goes in here, and they later transitioned to a 10 vein, and I think the 13 vein came about in 97, maybe 98, somewhere around in there. If you have a 7 vein pump working on an early 700 R4, you're going to want to update that. It's really not the best, and yeah. The 10 vein versus the 13 vein, I don't think there's too much of a difference for performance. I've seen lots of arguments, but nothing conclusive. So, in the case of this, if you're going to go with the 13 vein, everything should be drop in play for any pump you have. You just have to make sure you get everything for a 13 vein pump. And we're going to check our clearances with the rotor and the slide. These are the old rotor and slide sitting up here. I have brand new ones. So we're going to use that. And I've already checked these, mind you, so we're just going to go over this quickly just to get it all out of the way. If you go with 13 vein, you're going to have to make sure all these are good. And I think the only real advantage over the 13 vein is a reducing cavitation for the pump. But for your rotor, you're just going to plop that in here. Okay, and you're going to take your straight edge, this is right here, haha. You're just going to take your straight edge here and put it over the top. And the clearances you're looking for from the straight edge to your rotor are 1.5 to 2.5 thousandths of an inch clearance. So if you just take a feeler gauge set, this would be your absolute low end. Hopefully you can see that. And this is going to be your top end for clearances. Now, I know sometimes you can go up to 4 thou on an absolute stock rebuild. I'd recommend keeping it within this for clearances. And you're just going to stick that under check and do it in a couple positions. That's really all. So we're going to move along fast through this. But once you check that and make sure it's good, you're going to get out your slide, which in this case, put it back. This would be the brand new slide. That'll go in this one. And you want to check clearance for your slide without the O-ring or the O-ring cover installed. So all you'll do, just roughly line this up. You can put the pivot pin in if you want, doesn't matter, but you'll just do the same thing. And the clearance you want for your slide is going to be 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch across the top here. Once you have verified all that, we're going to talk about this bushing in here. This one still needs replaced. Now, for your torque converter, because this is where this bushing will ride on, the journal of your torque converter, you want about 4 thousandths inch of a clearance. Honestly, when you put your new bushing in, you can set this down. You just don't want side to side play and then it spins freely. If you have side to side play, you have too much clearance and you're going to want to rectify that with another bushing. One that hopefully doesn't have that. In the case, when you go to replace this bushing only goes in and out one way. It'll come out towards the pump, and when you put the new one in, it'll go in from the pump side. Do not install or remove it towards the seal side. The reason for that, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a small lip right here, just a very small lip this bushing butts up against. And if you drive this bushing out this way and reinstall it this way, you're going to flatten out this lip and you're going to have issues with this bushing staying in place. It's a very small lip, so when you remove this, you're going to go out this way, and reinstallation you're going to go back in through this way. The seal only goes one way. Make sure you use 680 Loctite on the seal and the bushing. Now, for the other half, the stator half of our pump, we have a bushing here, which you're going to need a bushing and bearing puller. Pull this out, collet style. Same with this side. It's going to be the same way. So, let's get the puller out and get started. Now with the puller installed, what we're going to do, just keep a little pressure here and that's all there was to it. You get that pulled, just look around in here, make sure there's no scoring or visible damage. You don't want any of that. And then rinse and repeat for the other bushing. So after getting the old bushings out, one of them, this one here, gave me a huge fit. I want to bring you back to the bushing I was talking about earlier in the pump cover. And without that bushing in there, hopefully you can really see what I was talking about. This little lip here. You do not want to drive your bushing out that way, because see how there's this little lip? It's very small. And with that bushing in place, it's hard to notice, but without it you can see just that very small lip there. You don't want to cream that or lose that. That's going to help keep your bushing where it's supposed to be, and that's going to be your dead stop for this bushing. So, once I finish cleaning up a couple parts, we're going to go to assembly. Alright, so got the new bushings pressed into the pump cover and the stator shaft. This is, well, you're probably wondering why this is here. I'm going to show you why. Because anytime you press your bushings in, you want to double check. And this is the torque converter that's going to go into this. And this is a brand new reman. But you're just going to slide that bushing on, and what you're looking for, it slides freely, and you don't really have any side-to-side play. So with that, we can get this heavy guy out of the way. Oh. And then for our stator shaft here, what we're going to do, we're going to plop our input drum here. We're just going to slide this on. Now, when you do this, you're going to want to check each one individually first. So if you do the front, you'll check that first before you do the rear, and then if you do the rear, you'll do that, and then you can check them together. But what you're looking for, nice good fit, spins freely, no side-to-side slop. And I guess a reminder, on these bushings here, you want to use your Loctite on to help retain them. And remember, you're going to butt your pump cover bushing right up against that small lip. So let's get on to actual assembly. I do want to make a quick note. When you go to test your pump cover onto the torque converter, don't put this seal in yet. This seal will heat up a little bit, so you won't truly see how this bushing sits to your torque converter journal. So remember, leave this off when you're testing that bushing, and then you can put your seal back in. All right, so let's get assembling the pump cover. You're gonna see I have a new rotor and slide kit. It comes with everything. If you're going to reuse your old ones, remember, check your clearances. Even with the new one, check your clearances, but make sure everything's good. So, the easiest way to start this, we're going to start with the slide. And we're going to pull the O-ring and the O-ring cover right out. The O-ring just goes right inside like so. I will take a little bit of transmission fluid and just dab around. Be the best way to do it. Now, your O-ring and that cover are going to go upside down. Easiest way to do that is to take your pump cover upside down, line it up, put it in, boom. Next we're going to install the spring and the pivot pin here. Next, you're going to take your two springs for your slide. These can be a pain to get in, to be honest. And yes, there is a high flying spring danger with all this. Next, we're going to grab our wiper seal out of here. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, we're going to start on our rotor assembly. You're going to see this is the side that's going to install down that way. Your retainer here, you're going to make sure this lip sticks up, okay? Because it rides right against there like so. Just like that. We'll have a ring that goes on there. What we're going to do, put some Vaseline all over in here. Then you'll have your other wear ring. That'll just go right on top then. We're going to leave that out for a second. And then we have our vanes for our pump, which all they'll do, slide right down in here. Then the other ring just goes right inside there. And you can see that bottom ring does the same thing as this. It will keep those vanes where they're supposed to be. And if you need to, you can just see what I did. Just took the pick down there, slide it around that a little bit. But everything feels good, so we are done with the pump cover. So we're going to set that off to the side. Now we're going to come to the stator side, which we have the boost valve and the torque converter apply, and then our pressure relief and filter to put in. Do that, make sure. So let's start with our pressure relief first, because that's super easy one. You're going to take a check ball, slide that right back in, spring, and then you have your pin at the top. There's that. You'll see, I guess, right there. You'll see there's a little hole for that to go in too. That spring can be a pain in the butt to compress, but that'll be for your pressure relief. Let's do our filter quick so we don't forget it. And you want to make sure you put a brand new filter in. Boom, done. Then we'll do our whole boost valve assembly. Well, I'm sorry, pressure regulator assembly. So right here is where we're going to substitute a part for a Sonax one, which will be this valve here. So we will set him off to the side and get our Sonax one. And our Sonax will install exactly just like the factory does. So anytime you see these little niblets here, those always go towards your springs. So when you reassemble this, if you didn't keep track, little spring sit in that nublet like that. Your bigger spring is going to sit in the outside of that nublet. And then the other side of your valve, see how this is flat? This isn't where it's going to go. It's going to go that side, and that spring will ride all the way up against the actual boost valve. So with our Sonics part in hand, let's just lube it up a little bit. And that's going to go in this bore here. Okay, so we are not going to use the Sonics valve because for some reason it's actually a little too big. So we're going to retest this later and make sure. Maybe I got a bad result because it's actually really tight for the factory valve. But you just seat that down in there. And here comes the fun part. Getting these springs on. Okay. Let's do that before I forget to do that. There we go. You want to make sure that snap ring is fully seated in the groove and that your boost valve still actuates fine. Like I said, we're going to retest that because I could have sworn that tested a little low. We need a Sonics valve, but I guess not. So, get on to this guy for this circuit. Right here's where our springs are going to go. And what we're going to do here first is install the springs first onto this. Which, look at that, almost perfect right off the bat. Almost. And there we go. We got both springs fully seated. And remember, you want that rounded nub side going in first. You want to make sure, yep, we got them going through both the springs correctly. And then you're going to have this little plate here that'll go in. And then your snap ring. right, got that fully seated. This here is your filter bushing for your filter to go in. We're not going to do anything with that. So with this, we do have our two pumps, well, two halves of our pumps done. Now we need to align the pump halves, which is going to be a little annoying, I guess. But what we're going to do, which this is the cool part of doing the pump first. Let me go over here. We're going to grab our sun shell as a spacer. We're going to bring this up here, rest it on there, and then keep note, your two holes, you want to line those up, that way you're not searching them. And then just roughly line this up. There's an alignment tool for this, but I'm going to show you a trick where you don't need the alignment tool at all. And this will guarantee everything will fit once you do this. So, do I have the wrong bolts? Nope, doesn't look like it. I'm just trying to put a bolt where it don't go. That's all. But you just want to bring these guys roughly tight. You don't want to tighten this yet. Don't tighten it yet. Want to get these hands snug. And on the outside, just get your pump halves roughly lined up. You want these two mating surfaces to be as flush as can be. Then, I'm just going to hand tighten these up a smidge more. Don't want to go crazy here. So, let's look at our transmission case. And I will show you the neat trick. So right here we have our case. We're going to take our filter bushing and line this up, which will be right here. And remember, you want this seal out. Don't have this seal in right now. And this is going to tell you everything you need to know. Which, boom. Pump halves are aligned. We know that, and we have it verified right here. See how nice that slipped in? So with that seal, we know it's going to be good. So, back to the bench we go. And then we're going to torque all these bolts to 18 foot-pounds. There's no specified torque procedure or any torque sequence. So generally the way I'm going to do it is a star pattern for what this is. Tighten, 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 tighten. And we'll know that'll be good. And remember, it's 18 foot-pounds. So let me go get a torque wrench. Alright, so we got that torqued. Let's come over here and do one more alignment check. That all looks good. So there's our pump. We'll move on to the next assembly shortly.